Welcome to the Wellness Connection with Dr. McMinn. Dr. McMinn is Birmingham's wellness doctor, practicing cutting-edge, world-class wellness medicine at McMinn Clinic in Homewood, Alabama. Each week, Dr. McMinn interviews experts in the field of integrative wellness medicine. The Wellness Connection brings you the information you need to optimize your health in mind, body, and spirit. And now, here's Dr. McMinn.
Good morning and welcome once again to the Wellness Connection with Dr. McMinn. This is Dr. James McMinn. I'm here as usual with our moderator, Misti Walraven. Good morning, Misti.
Good morning, Dr.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Wonderful. Well, who do we have on the show today, Misti?
We have pharmacist Scott Wepfer. He is the owner of the compounding shop there in Homewood.
Well, and we're here with Scott today talking about adrenal fatigue. It's a very exciting subject. And Scott, we're so happy to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you, Dr. McMinn.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get going, let me tell you just a little bit about myself. I have a practice in Homewood, Alabama called McMinn Clinic, where we practice world-class integrative medicine. I am a residency-trained and board-certified MD physician, and I'm also currently on the faculty of the UAB School of Medicine. So once again, Scott, you're right down the road from us, right there on Independence Drive. They're in Homewood, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and how long have you been in that location?
We've been there for about 10 years, been in practice for about 16.
Oh, wow, so you've got a ton of experience. And Scott, I know I got to know you back when I got into integrative medicine, and I've always been impressed with your professionalism. I know people have been turning to you for years and years for compounding solutions. Tell us about compounding pharmacies in general, because I think a lot of patients and physicians need to learn more about compounding in general.
Sure, thank you very much. Compounding pharmacy kind of fits in, if we look at the regular medicines that are available today, they kind of take a one-size-fits-all approach. We may have a 10 milligram and a 25 milligram tablet available. It might be that the 10 is not enough and 25 causes side effects. Compounding fits in with pharmacists that specialize in this field. We're able to customize medicines based on the unique needs of the individual patient. So it gives the doctor, the physician prescribing, a lot of therapeutic alternatives to choose from.
Mm-hmm. Also in terms of the actual delivery system.
Absolutely.
You guys have a lot of, you guys are so creative as far as different ways to come up with medications. I had a young lady in the office yesterday who couldn't swallow pills, and so we were able to send her to a compounding pharmacy so she could get a delivery system that worked for her. So,
yeah, that's very common.
But so as far as your particular area of interest, Scott, I know you have worked a lot with adrenal fatigue, and you have a lot of expertise in this area. Any other particular areas of interest that you have?
We do a lot in the area of pain management, working with physicians in the community with hormone replacement therapy, primarily with women, and working with chronic sinusitis patients with, again, different ways of delivering the medicines.
Right, and so, for instance, anybody who had any of those problems, pain issues, sinusitis, those kind of things, they could work through their physician, could they not? And their physician could actually call you and discuss the case with you, and you could work with the patient and their doctor to come up with the ideal solution for the patient, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I know you reach out to a lot of docs in town, don't you, Scott?
We do.
And, yeah, it's fabulous. And I think you've been around long enough, they've gotten to know you and trust you and love you, and so I'm sure you've benefited a lot of folks in the community. But we're going to focus today on adrenal fatigue, Scott, and it's an area. I have a confession to make. You know, I've been I'll call it a regular doctor for 20 years before I got into integrative medicine, and I really hadn't heard much about adrenal fatigue. But since I've been doing this kind of thing, it's really been on my radar screen. I see it a lot and treat it a lot. But I'm really excited to talk to you today and get your expertise on this subject. So let's start with the basic question: what is adrenal fatigue?
I think adrenal fatigue is really well described by that word fatigue.
Yes.
That's typically the primary issue that people come in with complaining of. And it comes from stress. It can be psychological stress, physical stress, and what's happening in adrenal fatigue is our stress response center, the adrenal glands, about the size of walnuts that sit on top of each of our kidneys, just kind of get worn out. And when that happens, it's amazing when that's the root problem for a patient, how many branches or symptoms can start to show up for that patient. And I think it falls into the category of functional illness. It's something that I don't think is taught a lot in medical school. So the patient who goes in to the typical doctor, and thankfully we have doctors like yourself in
No,
town
right.
that have
Well, thank you.
expanded and are thinking out of the box. There's really not a lot of tests that will show up positive, and when the lab test shows up being normal and the patient still feels poorly, I think that's what they call functional illness.
You know, Scott, I was, as I said, in regular medicine, I don't think I ever heard anybody talking about adrenal fatigue, either in medical school, in the halls of academic medicine, in private practice. It just was not on the radar screen, and yet it seems like it's something that affects a lot of our society. Because let's face it, the fight and flight stress system that we're all born with was not meant for modern day life, was it?
No, it was not at all.
No, you know, this sort of chronic stress we have these days, like everybody's got deadlines, and of course you know, especially I must admit, moms, right, Misti,
Yes.
right? So they, you know, it's amazing what they do. They go to work all day, and they got to get supper on the table at night, and they've got deadlines, and they got kids in soccer practice,
Super
and
moms.
it just seems like there's no downtime these days.
Exactly. I just
Yeah,
heard this study
yeah.
recently that
Right.
if moms were to be paid, it'd be about 115,000.
I'm
Of
telling you.
that, only 38,000 was base pay. Most
Right.
of it was for overtime pay.
Overtime.
Right. And so once again, I think our fight and flight system was fabulous for letting us get away from that saber-toothed tiger, but
Yes.
it doesn't fit with modern day society, and so that ultimately puts a lot of stress on our system, and that sort of trickles down to the adrenal glands, as you talked about, and we get that adrenal burnout or adrenal fatigue.
Yes.
So as the name implies, then the first symptom we get from that is fatigue. Any other symptoms you see with adrenal fatigue, Scott?
Well, there's a lot of symptoms that can show up with adrenal fatigue. Hot flashes, night sweats, even in men. Not uncommon.
Yes.
Sometimes we hear it referred to as entrepreneurial terror. That
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
waking up in the middle of the night, oh my gosh, what about my business? Well,
Right.
that's coming from the stress of the business.
Right.
Increased heart rate, panic attacks, anxiety, lower no sex drive. It can eventually evolve into digestive problems, people coming in with heartburn complaints, irritable bowel syndrome complaints, dizziness when they stand, down to the point of fainting. Worked with one young lady several years ago, was actually my son's first girlfriend,
Oh, wow.
and she'd faint several times a day.
Did he put a lot of stress on her?
I don't know.
I hope he was there to catch her.
Or was it his dad put stress on her? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, yeah, luckily you're there to catch her. So, can it affect anyone, or is it pick on women more than men, or anybody in particular?
You know, it can absolutely affect anyone. Just had a young man come in for something completely different 2 days ago, and for him, his reason for the stress was college, which
Yeah, oh,
we
yeah.
see a lot with the college kids. But I think it's more prevalent in women
Yes.
because, you know, when we're talking about adrenal fatigue, the adrenal glands make their own set of hormones, but we also have in women the female hormone system, or in men the male hormone system, and then the thyroid hormone system, and I think that there's a common imbalance that can happen in the female system that sets women up for adrenal fatigue, and that's when their progesterone levels start to go low.
You know, on the one hand, women are so hormonally blessed as far as they can have babies
Yeah.
and can do all these wonderful things, but I think it makes them much more hormonally complicated, don't you, Scott?
Oh, they are
Yeah,
so much
yeah.
more complicated than we are.
Yes, we are.
I
Yeah.
once heard a doctor say, when
Yeah.
it comes to men and their hormones,
Yeah.
you give them Viagra and motor oil, and they are fine.
That's about right.
Not so easy
So-
with women.
No.
So other major stressors, like for instance, the stress. You know, one thing I see a lot in my practice, Scott, is just the lack of sleep. You know, everybody's burning the candle at both ends, and that just has such an amazing effect on our stress system.
It does.
Yeah. And this poor eating habits, you know, the diets we eat, the sort of high sugar processed food, junk food diets, that's what I call food stress.
Exactly. Not to mention the caffeine.
Yeah. Oh gosh. But we're getting up chasing our tail, don't we, Scott? You know, because we're fatigued, so we drink the caffeine, and the caffeine puts more stress on our adrenals, so we get more fatigued, and it's just sort of the vicious cycle we get
Yeah.
into.
And some people don't even realize they have low energy because they run all day on false energy,
Right.
verved up by the
Right.
caffeine,
Red Bull.
Yeah, that's
et
right.
cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Well, I had an interesting guy in the office just the other day, and he suffered from what I call world stress. Right. Now, I shouldn't say this on this radio station, but he listened to talk radio all day long.
What was wrong with him?
And so what happened, you know, he just, you know, he spent his life being angry at everybody, you know,
Yeah.
and that's what I call world stress. You know, turn it off, y'all, and, you know, set some limits on it at least, and